Good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Dean Garfield. I am the President and CEO of the Information Technology Industry Council. We're honored to have with us this morning Ambassador Terry Kramer, who is leading the U.S. delegation in the World Conference on International Telecommunications. I must admit that a mere 2 years ago, I would be more inclined to associate wicket with witches or the sport of cricket than international telecommunications, but I've been eating my spinach and otherwise listening to the companies that I work for and have a greater sense of the role of wicket and its important role in telecommunications, as well as its implications for internet and internet governance and a range of other issues. In fact, the context for some of today's discussion will be the internet, and we talk about it all the time, and so I think it's important to pause and recognize the awesomeness of the phenomena that is the internet. What started a bit over 20 years ago as a social network, even before the term was coined, for smart college professors like Dave Farber and Vint Cerf and Leonard Kleinrock, has now grown and evolved into a diverse organic matter that consists of over 40,000 networks with over 425,000 unique routes globally, that has over 2.2 billion people using it, with 500,000 new people using the internet every single day, accessing over 600 million unique websites, and driving over 600 billion with a B dollars in revenue and capital into the economy. It is because of the economic, social, cultural, and democratic implications and impact of the internet that we view the work that Ambassador Kramer and the work that the Wicket is engaged in as being so important. In fact, some of the proposals that will be discussed in Dubai in December related to internet governance or content regulation or standards, where open, consensus-based, diverse processes have served us well, are critically important and are certain to be ones that the information and communications technology sector pays great attention to, and that we're sure Ambassador Kramer will handle exceptionally well. In fact, it's hard to imagine someone else being more well-positioned to advance these issues for the United States and the United States delegation. Ambassador Kramer has spent over 20 years working in the international telecommunications space, holding essentially every important title that you can hold, including CEO and regional president, where he was most recently the regional president of the Americas for Vodafone. In addition to that, he has played a great thought leadership role, whether it's at the Harvard Business School, where he's been an entrepreneur in residence, or at UCLA or UC Berkeley, where he's also been affiliated with. It's fair to say that Ambassador Kramer is someone who's really been at the center of the transition between voice to data-driven ecosystem on the internet and on mobile systems generally. One of the things that jumped out about his resume, and I'll turn things over to him because you came to hear him and not necessarily me, is that not only is he a person of substance, he's a person of great style. He was also the COO of one of my favorite stores, which is the Banana Republic. So with that bit of trivia, I'll turn things over to Ambassador Kramer.
Dean, thank you very much. Your research is very good. There's no secrets out there at all. And Dean, thank you for your leadership of ITI. Ken, thank you for organizing this event. And I appreciate all of you being here because, as you know, this issue that we're talking about, which is really the future of the internet and telecom and the environment that we create for success, is a critical one. And having a dialogue on that is going to be very important to our own success. And one of the reasons I wanted to speak today is we're going to be making a submission, our first one on Friday, to the ITU of our views on a variety of proposals and where we think the direction should be for the World Conference on International Telecommunications. And with that, I'd like to share my views and vision about the industry and where success was driven that color our views about our submissions and where we think this conference should go. And just to give you some brief background, and again, I think Dean touched on it, I had the good fortune of working at Vodafone for about 20 years and having a chance to see a lot of things happen in the mobile industry, including the advent of the internet. And starting way back when I was at Vodafone, the business literally was a beeper business. And that beeper business later became a cell phone business. That cell phone business, which started out as a service very much for high-end users, became a mass market service. And what was originally a developed market opportunity became very much a global opportunity. And at the same time, a lot of those developments were happening in the mobile industry. The internet system and ecosystem evolved with a whole variety of solutions, whether they be location-based services, whether they be customer analytics, whether it be social media, all creating a unique set of services to really appeal to users on a customized basis. So today, when you think about it, you can look into the stars and literally figure out what it is you're seeing in terms of constellations and stars, courtesy of the internet. But what I'd like to talk about again today is the wicket and, again, our approach on that. And the basis of all of this, I believe, started early on in part with the growth of the mobile industry 27 years ago. And if you look at the 27-year history, we've gone from no cell phones to 5.3 billion mobile subscriptions today. The overall mobile penetration rate in developed markets is 116%. And if you look at the developing markets, it's already at 70% penetration, and that's expected to get to 100% in the next 3 to 4 years. And if you also think about it too, 90% of the world's population, including 80% of the people that live in rural areas worldwide, are within an area of mobile network coverage. So a huge explosion in the market. 3G, 4G networks are being built all over. So the question is, how did this happen? What are the learnings from all of this? And how did this happen? Well, in the mobile industry, it happened through a wave of liberalization that really drove a lot of national regulators to open up their markets to multiple service providers. It happened through regulators who proactively moved to award spectrum so that there, again, could be a supply side that was really addressed with the growing demand. It came from industry-driven standard setting that had brought technological innovation to market at accelerated speeds. And it also came through a new consumer-oriented outlook that was adopted by industry and government alike that drove innovative services. Things like prepaid services, handset subsidies, text messaging, etc. Mobile operators worked with infrastructure providers, worked with device makers, worked with members of a broader ecosystem, again, to create mobile internet services that has been a huge success. While all of that was happening on the mobile industry side, there was also a lot of movement on the fixed broadband side in the market. The internet was becoming a global phenomenon, both on mobile and fixed networks. The adoption of the World Wide Web, which it was called back then, gave the internet a friendly user interface. And that again created huge results. 2.4 billion internet users worldwide, a number expected to increase to 3.5 billion by 2016. 1.2 billion of those internet users are in developing countries. Moreover, demand for internet access through other IP-based applications have fueled the growth of broadband networks. Fixed broadband technologies, including DSL service, cable modem service, have made possible downloads, video, rich content throughout the world. This content can be created, cached, and transmitted anywhere in the world, and increasingly includes developing countries that are linked regionally through undersea cables and through internet exchange points. Broadband service is now available in 208 economies, virtually every country in the world. Fixed broadband subscriptions have more than doubled in 5 years, from 284 million in 2006 to an estimated 591 million at the end of last year. And of course, this growth of broadband capability isn't just confined to fixed services. The marriage of internet and mobility embodied in 3G and 4G networks is now a growing reality. It's now estimated there are over 1 billion mobile broadband subscriptions in about 143 countries around the globe. Not surprisingly, we're seeing an explosion in the amount of data, much of it in the form of voice over IP, in the form of video, circling the globe. Roughly 369 exabytes, and an exabyte is 1 million terabytes of IP data was exchanged around the world last year. And this is a number that Cisco predicts will rise by 2016 to 1.3 zettabytes, which is equal to 1.3 billion terabytes. Overall, IP traffic is forecasted to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 29% from 2011 to 2016. Operators, meanwhile, have abandoned their walled gardens on the mobile side that restricted non-proprietary content, and they've done so with the customer in mind. Like the mobile industry, and perhaps even more so, the internet is created, maintained, and driven in an organic, bottoms-up way by the people who need it and use it. And again, we have to ask ourselves, what caused this phenomenon? And the answer is both nobody and everybody. The internet is truly a decentralized ecosystem, pulling in network operators, application designers, and content creators from all over the world. And who are the beneficiaries of this growth? It comes in several areas. There are economic benefits in the form of jobs, beginning with mobile network expansion, but also jobs created through online commerce and content delivery. There are commercial benefits illustrated by farmers who can use cell phones to link with buyers, checking weather conditions and determining commodity prices real time. It creates social benefits. Healthcare providers can use mobile technology to do remote diagnostics and treatment of healthcare workers. Human benefits. Human benefits include groups that can organize themselves online, and friends can reestablish contact after several years of separation. Everyone exploring new meanings of connectivity and connectedness. In a global marketplace that's battling for growth, the telecommunications and internet industries have acted as multipliers of productivity, translating into greater employment and social benefits. In the OECD countries, the internet now accounts for an average of 4% of GDP, up from 7 to 8% now in the wired countries such as South Korea and the UK. Moreover, a University of Munich study reported by the ITU found that a 10% increase in broadband penetration yields an increase in GDP of between 1 and 1.5%. So with the internet, we have benefits that are as concrete as labor statistics and as ephemeral as a smile when somebody's on their laptop. One thing is clear, this phenomenon belongs to the entire world. Internet business ventures, social media companies, and enterprise applications are sprouting up all over the globe. Meanwhile, national broadband plans and policies which lower market entry barriers, allow competition, encourage infrastructure sharing, reallocate and refarm spectrum, and provide tax incentives for investment are being implemented in both developed and developing markets alike. In Kenya, the government has articulated a national policy for its communications market called Vision 2030. Kenya has leveraged its geographic location to develop access to international fiber optic cables, reducing wholesale bandwidth costs by 80%. It's used public-private partnerships to attract investment, and it's pioneered online banking services such as M-Pesa, which is used by more than 80% of subscribers of Safaricom, Kenya's largest mobile operator. Of the so-called BRIC countries, Brazil has also initiated a national broadband plan that seeks to maximize competition in the mobile and broadband markets, fosters investment in the incumbent provider Telebras as a competitor in the wholesale broadband service market, employs technology neutrality in regulating networks while encouraging network build-outs, and provides tax and financial incentives. Hong Kong, meanwhile, has leveraged a private sector, market-oriented strategy to achieve a successful auction of LTE and WiMAX spectrum in 2009, even in the midst of the global financial crisis. It's also sustained private investment in broadband infrastructure, resulting in a broadband penetration rate of 83% as of the beginning of last year. Developing countries are acting now to facilitate the development of the internet. The key is to adopt nationally specific policies that leverage a broad-based nature of the internet and mobile environments and create a virtuous cycle of higher demand, economies of scale, and greater supply. Another way to describe these market developments is what I call innovation, supply, and demand. The ability of innovators and entrepreneurs worldwide, big and small, to create new products and services on the foundation of a healthy telecom and internet industry. This creates a supply of thousands of new products and services for a demanding set of customers who are anxious and willing to consume these new services in a world of greater mobility and connectedness. Governments work best when they implement an environment conducive to innovation, supply, and demand, and then step back and avoid counterproductive interventions. We should be clear about the specific ingredients for a successful internet ecosystem. Number one, the presence of a consuming public that is keen to learn, to be mobile, to achieve, and to be connected. Number two, markets that foster innovation and competition, forcing providers to improve and become more efficient to attract and keep customers. Number three, notable economies of scale in all aspects of new products and services, whether it be infrastructure, consumer services, driving down costs, and permitting widespread adoption. Number four, intuitive service offerings that make simplicity and ease of use the top priority in driving market uptake. Number five, standards that permit interoperability between a burgeoning set of devices and services within an increasingly global marketplace. Number six, availability of spectrum for an increasingly connected mobile world. And perhaps most importantly, freedom. This includes the freedom of ideas, the freedom of information, and the freedom to take entrepreneurial risks in an increasingly vibrant and decentralized environment. We should recognize that the innovation we have seen in the mobile and internet environments was not implemented in a top-down fashion by policymakers. It was driven by multiple players and stakeholders around the world. There are thousands of social media companies, web designers, retailers that market their own e-commerce offerings, analytics companies that break complex data down to drive customer-relevant solutions, mobile phone distributors, internet cafes, and community centers, all of them with a role in shaping products and demand. The internet has grown precisely because it has not been micromanaged, regulated, or owned by any government or intergovernmental organization. Let's be clear about this. The internet continues to demonstrate the effectiveness and success of the current multi-stakeholder structure and its own independence. No government or single organization can or should attempt to control the internet. Sustaining this environment, I believe, offers the best chance to continue achieving our mutual goal of making an innovation-driven information society a reality all over the world. This now brings us to the topic of the WCIT, the International Telecommunication Union's first conference to review the International Telecommunication Regulations, ITRs, since 1988. As we look back on what the delegates accomplished that year, we should appreciate the environment for success that they created. The genius of that work can be found not just in what the delegates chose to do back in 1988, but what they refrained from doing. The true magnetic north of their compass was to create a framework for interoperability and connectivity, but they did so without overburdening the ITRs with rigid fixes for specific issues or perceived inequities. Within the scope of the ITRs, the 1988 delegates created an architecture for innovation, flexibility, and broad-based consultation. The world has changed, and with any successful organization, it is wise to consider how that change should be reflected in the ITRs. But it is critical to acknowledge the flexibility and guidance that the ITRs have provided in light of our new environment. It is also vital to see the differences between the Internet and the structure of international telecommunication backbones, circuits, and gateways that have been addressed in the ITRs. The Internet is a new and different phenomenon entirely. It is not the legacy of common carriage and bent pipe transmission. It is an ecosystem of content providers, application developers, social media companies, and data and video transmission providers, and ultimately ideas and knowledge. There is no Internet central office or headquarters. Its openness and decentralization are its ultimate strengths. Now that the Internet is here and established, we need to nurture it in an environment that is highly data-driven, characterized by a free flow of information and commerce happening at light speed, where innovation is organic and distributed worldwide, and where consumer interests continue to be met where they differ from country to country and within countries. Several proposals have been made for the upcoming WCIT that, although seemingly well-intentioned, fail to acknowledge this new world we live in and what is required for future success. In particular, proposals to control content transmitted over networks runs counter to the foundation of a free and vibrant telecommunications and Internet society. The ITRs serve to set an international framework for linking international telecom facilities. They should not be inappropriately stretched to cover any aspect of content routed over those facilities. Throughout the WCIT process, the United States has and will continue to express opposition to proposals that would place governments in a position of greater power to censor the Internet, track content, or target end users, even under the guise of combating spam, controlling traffic routing, or identifying calling number information as a way to defeat alleged fraud and misuse of networks. There is an overriding issue of freedom of information that the United States recognizes as a core tenet of human rights. This is embedded not only in U.S. constitutional law and tradition, but it's also within the founding documents of the United Nations. Both the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights contain provisions, this is Article 19, that recognizes freedom of expression as well as a right to receive and impart ideas in any medium and across borders. Proposals to control content and routing or to expand the definitions of international telecommunications to cover the Internet ultimately will not work. Such proposals will only stifle innovation, promote customer cynicism, and breed workaround solutions to undermine flawed policies. They will also undercut the free flow of information and ideas, defeating the entire purpose of the ITRs themselves. Similarly, proposals that seek to artificially mandate pricing terms, such as transfer payments between content providers and network operators, will only result in failure. With regard to transfer payments on data traffic, the U.S. would raise the following questions. How would transfer payments be implemented in the current environment? Who would determine the transfer prices and how to apply them? Is the originator of an Internet search a sending or receiving party? Finally, what happens if network operators refuse to transmit downloaded content because the termination rate to a certain country or ISP is excessive or uneconomic? And probably most importantly, would such pricing lead to an increased freedom or flow of information or less? To be clear, the United States will oppose changes to the ITRs that restrict the free flow of content, broaden the scope of the ITRs, however subtly, to impinge on the Internet's natural growth and evolution, or impose uneconomic pricing or transfer payment obligations on Internet content providers or backbone operators. In its initial tranche of contributions, the United States will make the following proposals, which are consistent with this approach. We will, number one, consider only minimal changes to the preamble of the ITRs. Number two, we'll seek alignment of the definitions in the ITRs with those in the ITU Constitution and Convention, including no changes to the definition of telecommunications and international telecommunications service. Number three, we'll approve ITRs which maintain the voluntary nature of compliance with ITU recommendations. Number four, we'll continue to apply the ITRs only to recognized operating agencies ROAs, the ITR scope should not be expanded to address other operating agencies that are not involved in the provision of international telecommunications service to the public. And finally, promote revisions of Article 6 to reflect the variety of flexible and innovative interconnection and termination agreements found in competitive markets. There will be subsequent opportunities for the U.S. to make additional proposals, and meanwhile I'm engaging in bilateral discussions with other governments to hear their views and how they believe their own proposals will drive continued success of the telecommunications and internet industries. For the United States, our approach is based on recognition that the existing environment today works amazingly well, and it is empowering telecommunications and human development by quantum leaps. In cases where imbalances occur, they can be addressed through market forces and consumer-focused national policies that empower local content development and stimulate local and regional traffic and demand. So what would be the focus of a unique opportunity to drive a new set of ITRs at the wicket? To reaffirm our belief what will drive future market success, to recommit ourselves to the goal of maintaining and promoting global telecommunications connectivity in the 21st century, to create an unfettered free flow of ideas, information, and commerce, to establish high-level principles that foster an open and secure internet and network operating environment, and to be pragmatic in understanding that telecom and internet economies are too large, too distributed, too diverse for any one organization to control. In more practical terms, this means preserving the principle of the ITR's preamble, including the value of connectivity, maintaining the stability of the ITRs, as well as the voluntary nature of compliance within the ITU's standard recommendations, and preserving the definitions in the current treaty that have served the world so well. It means avoiding changes to those definitions and to the overall ITRs that would broaden their scope, dilute their meaning, and amount to mission creep for an international treaty that has been so effective in establishing a platform for growth and innovation. So in summary, we should congratulate ourselves on the 25 years plus of success in building a vibrant telecom and internet economy, driving economic growth, and empowering individuals with information, connectedness, and commercial opportunities. Our challenge now more than any other is to maintain an environment for continued success and to continue creating that environment around the globe in all countries. We need to acknowledge how innovation is best created through consumer demand and realize that the internet is beyond the scope of any one nation or regulatory authority to manage or to control. By following these principles, we will enable the telecommunications and internet phenomenon to become our lasting legacy and platform for success for future generations. Thank you.